¿Cómo estás? And welcome. Mi nombre es Miguel. I think that's how you would say it in Spanish. If you guys know who I'm talking about, hey you and welcome. My name is Mike. And in this old video, we're going to be covering that chapter. I have not covered that chapter video in a long time. Let me flip my hat backwards here, because I'm ready to cover some Mike from that chapter, man. I miss covering some of his stuff. Let's see. Man, what the hell is that? I don't know what that came from. I don't have dandruff or anything. Anyways, let's see what he got going for us today. I'm far behind, so you guys probably already seen some of these. If you haven't, please stick around. So, let's get this started.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, we are going to look at the story of Riley Crossman, who lived in that state, made famous by that song, in the club. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, that's how it goes, right? I could look that up to double check, but I won't. In Berkeley Springs lived Riley Crossman, a widely adored and cherished 15-year-old. But someone managed to enter her life and her room, who was just You know what? I'll save the insults for later. But chillingly, Riley Crossman's last text message read, "I'm scared." Let's give it a go. So the setting for this old video is Berkeley Springs. WV, baby! It's right on the border of both Maryland and Pennsylvania, and is home to less than 1,000 people. I mean, like a lot less than 1,000 people. It's pretty gosh darn small, excuse my language. It's an old town, been around since before America was, and is an artistic place to be. It's also home to the Berkeley Springs International Water Tasting, if you can believe that. Truly mind-blowing stuff. Yep, it's water alright, and that is where Riley Crossman was born, lived, and growed up. Riley was born on December 22nd, 2003, and as a teen was a dancer, a singer, an artist. She was everything you'd want your teenage daughter to be. She was dating a classmate of hers, a guy named Hayden, and had been for about 8 months. They were mad about each other, and he was well liked by Riley's family also. Now Riley was the oldest in her family. She had 1 little sister and 2 little brothers, and would split her time between her parents' homes, Lance Crossman and Chantel Oakley. They had divorced, but it was amicable enough, and the family would only grow larger as new people entered the fray. Riley lived mainly with her mother Chantel, her 2 younger brothers, and her mother's new boyfriend, Andy McCauley. So that takes us to May 8th, 2009. A 911 call was made to the Morgan County Police Department Sheriff's Office to say that Riley Crossman was missing. And so officers arrived at 15 Greenway Drive, Berkeley Springs, to follow up on the report of a missing juvenile.
Mom, take a look in her bedroom.
Now, the first thing the authorities did before they went, to her house, before they spoke to the parents, before they did literally anything, was send out a ping to Riley Crossman's phone to try and, determine its location. And what did they get? They got nothing. Her phone, dead. And so it was the next morning, the day after, the 911 call was made, that the police officers, they rocked up to Riley Crossman's house. And they left it kind of so long, for like a good few hours between the call being made and them showing up to speak to the parents because, teenagers disappear all the time, right? There's always you always hear stories about teenage runaways and with their little bindles and doing this and that and those. But this time, things were looking different. And they began to really say, okay, we really need to look into this. Well, 1, you got a juvenile who's missing, and 2, Lance Crossman, Riley's father, he went to the police himself and said, I was at the house.
Oh shit, I did something, my bad. Excuse me.
The time, right? There's always teenage. You always hear stories about teenage runaways and with their little bindles and doing this and that and
Sorry,
those.
guys. That was on me.
But this time, things were looking different, and they began to like really say, "Okay, we really need to look into this." Well, one, you got a juvenile who's missing, and two, Lance Crossman, Riley's father, he went to the police himself and said, "I was at the house. I was in her bedroom. It looks like there could have been a struggle. Her TV had fallen over."
Is this further straight back? Is this further straight back? Is this? Deb said she said
I'm gonna pick it up.
On May 7th, 2 days before all of this, that is when Riley Crossman was last seen. That day, it had been one of them regular ass Tuesdays. Riley, she was in school, she arrived home at about 3:30 p.m. Riley walked in the door of her house and she saw her mother, Chantel, having a nap on the couch. Now, Chantel, Riley's mother, she worked hard. She was a very hard worker and, she was struggling really to make ends meet. She worked 2 jobs. And so she would work a job in the morning, come home, rest, and then go and work her second job that evening. And when Riley came home from school, that was usually like, essentially kind of like Chantel's alarm, as in Riley would wake her up saying, okay, time to start getting ready. Now, this particular day, though, Chantel was quite sick. But still, even being under the weather, she thanked Riley for waking her up, headed off to work that evening. And so then later on that same day, Chantel came home. She entered the door of her house. She saw Andy chilling there on the couch. She went upstairs. She saw the bedroom door, Riley's bedroom door, was closed, thinking maybe she was getting an early night. It's around 10 p.m. So Chantel herself went to bed. The next morning, the 8th of May, was off to an odd start for Chantel by kind of like the most innocuous of things. Every morning, at around 7 a.m., Riley would come into Chantel's bedroom to say, "Hey, good morning, hope you have a great day." Except this day, she didn't do that. Chantel got up, she saw Riley's bedroom door was closed. So, Chantel went in, saw the room. Riley was not there. Riley was not in her bed at that stage. Chantel, though, assumed that maybe she'd gotten up early, she'd gone into school earlier that day to go and meet up with friends, which was not like an uncommon thing for Riley Crossman to do at all. And so Chantel got up, went to, her job, went to her first job. But she couldn't get through to her daughter at all that day. She called Lance. Lance, her divorced husband, Riley's father, he couldn't himself get through to Riley at all. And so things then became real weird when after 3 p.m. Chantel was alerted by the school that Riley Crossman had been a no-show that day. She hadn't gone to school at all. Her bedroom empty, she hadn't been at school, and now Chantel was learning none of her friends knew where she was, and her phone wasn't ringing out. It was straight to voicemail. The police were informed of this at about 6 p.m. that evening and then rocked up the next morning. The bedroom was extremely messy, as teens, kids, are wont to do.
Well, we just moved in recently. They're trying to remodel. That's why they're living. It looks like crackheads, actually, is what they call it, crackhead living. We just don't have walls.
But there was definitely some of that old, what they call evidence, that something was kind of wrong here. Like, for example, right, the room was messy, but they still could find a lot of things. Like her school bag was there. Her glasses, and Riley wore glasses everywhere. Her glasses were there. Her purse was there. In fact, the only thing missing was her phone. If she had indeed done a legger of her own volition, there's definitely a lot more, here that she would have taken. And as they kind of rooted through the detritus of a teenager's bedroom, they began to notice something which is kind of like you don't really want to see. Spots of blood. Spots of blood on the comforter, on the blanket, on the pillow.
Oh yeah, that's not spots of blood.
But what was even weirder than all this was Chantel told police that when she'd been in this bedroom previously, the morning when she checked on her to see and she noticed Riley wasn't there and she assumed Riley was gone to school, the bedroom was different now. Someone had been in Riley's room since Chantal first went in and noticed she wasn't there. Things were just not in the way they were.
The only mirror we have like this, so I came in yesterday morning, and I don't remember that being there. I feel like I would have noticed her book bag still being here, and especially her glasses, because this is not exactly the way it was. I've been in here digging and looking to see if there was a note or anything like that.
And you know what? Speaking of like this and that, this, that, these and those, you have got to watch your back. You got to watch out for a lot of stuff, like the person standing behind me right now, looking over my shoulder, dare I say, following me around everywhere I go, like someone who, I can't think of anything right now, but something that follows you. Well, follower, get the hell out of here, and I'm not afraid to say it. Sounds good, almost too good to be true than ever before against the hand. So once again, visit NorU, a mega discount on a 2-year plan, and also 4 months for free. 4 months for free, meaning costing you nothing? That's what I say to that. I say that. Thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring that chapter. Now let's get back to giving this tale a go.
A search is underway for a missing teenage girl in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. According to the Morgan County Sheriff's Department, 15-year-old Riley Crossman was last seen at her home in Berkeley Springs on May 8th.
A search began for Riley Crossman. The police began with questioning the family who had last seen her. They spoke with her mother, Chantal, all that jazz. And Chantal, her story matched. I mean, she was mostly at work at either of her 2 jobs, trying to make ends meet this entire time. Riley's boyfriend, Hayden, he had been on a class trip all day when her parents realized Riley was missing. But they also spoke with Andy. He said he saw her that night. She went to bed between 9 and 10 p.m. Her grandmother had been there too, leaving at about 7 p.m. And then Andy said he was up and out for work at around 4 a.m. Didn't see hide nor hair of her that entire time after she went to bed.
A lot of time.
When's the last time you saw her? Like 9,
11
maybe
hours.
10ish at night. Yeah. And what context was that? Oh, she was here in the house. She went to bed probably. Well, I don't know what time she went to bed, but she was. All the kids were in the room by like 9:30. Did she leave in the morning? No, I left 4. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Left 5. Okay, go to work.
But his colleagues, and Chantal would also confirm this, that he indeed had gone to work that morning. But he hadn't been there the entire day. He had been absent from work, from his construction job, for about 4 to 5 hours during the day, and no one knew where he had been, where he'd gone off to. He borrowed a work truck. The police then dragged him back in for this. In you yet? And Andy revealed he had a bit of a love for the old drugs, the devil's dandruff, dare I say. Dude, no way! This lad? And well, that was his excuse, for lying, for not telling the police, that he'd been away from work all day. Because he'd, initially told the police, been in work all day, nothing. Now they're learning something different. He said, okay, this is why I didn't tell you guys. I'm a bit of a professional skier, if you know what I mean. And so, that was his excuse. Alright, you caught me. You got me. I just fucking love drugs, guys. I'm just mad at them.
When was the last time you saw her? 9:30. 9:30, 9 Tuesday. Did you see Riley go upstairs at 9:30?
Yeah, she went upstairs at 9:30. We're here to talk about Riley. I don't know what they told you, but I'll reiterate that. I don't care about your drug source yet. I don't care about what kind of drugs you're using. Okay, we care about Riley. Yeah. Okay, so where'd you get them from?
I can't tell you how I got him from.
Do you want to cooperate with us and find out?
Yes.
Where'd you get the drugs from? You understand what I'm telling you? I don't care about the drugs.
Okay.
I do not care about the drugs. He does not care about the drugs.
I'm not trying
We
to
need honesty.
charge.
Okay, we need honesty. Who did you buy the drugs from?
They just said he didn't care about
What's more important, a drug dealer or Riley? Who did you get the drugs from?
Okay, so I went down that day. How that happened? Wednesday afternoon.
Wait,
This is one of these times you need to really sit down and think about what you're going to say. So you want to rethink what you just told me. One thing I'm going to not do to you is lie to you. I promise you that. I will never lie to you. I'm not going to make up shit. Okay? Don't do that to me.
I'm not trying to.
Okay. You're not trying to. Let's try this again. Let's go back. I know it's been a couple days. I know a lot has happened. Okay, get that. I understand that.
So you're saying, yeah, I lied, but it's nothing, that serious, really. but he didn't have his phone with him, so his movements of where he had actually gone that day were totally unaccounted for. What the police instead would do would try and find as much CCTV as they possibly could to track that truck. So there was a massive search going on throughout this time. Name the organization, they were there. Helicopters, over 300 volunteers. The school itself turned out for this.
I didn't have nothing to do with Raleigh's experience. Okay? I would never.
I don't believe you.
Well, then, no.
But I still I feel like I'm on trial. I have to answer every question for you, and I don't know the answers. I need this timeline. I need it because we're all trying to figure out the timeline. We're trying to figure it out. Because none of us firmly believe it's you, but until the police believe it's not you, they won't look anywhere. I have all of this everywhere. All these tips. I have 1,000 text messages. Lance has 1,000 text messages. She has 1,000 text messages of all these other things, and they won't look at them because they only think of you.
I know. That's what
And I get that. I understand why they're looking.
And the night Riley was last seen, she was in her room texting her friends. She was texting till after 11 p.m. that night, the 7th of May. Then she stopped, likely, you can presume, went to sleep. Though then, at 5:40 a.m., so middle of the night, she tried to call her boyfriend Hayden over FaceTime. Really weird time for her to be calling. Now Hayden, he was fast asleep. He didn't answer. He didn't even realize, he had missed the call. But this is like 2 hours before she would have to be up for school. Why would she try call that in like the middle of the night? Probably, you can assume it would probably mean it was an emergency. Then Hayden also saw the next day, and this is quite messed up. She had texted him at around after 11 p.m. saying to Hayden, Andy was in her room. She then texted at 11:13 p.m, I'm scared. And that was it, till he missed a FaceTime call after 5 a.m. the next morning.
Oh my God.
What's weird is that when Riley texted this to Hayden saying she was scared and Andy was in her room, as I said, this was shortly after 11 p.m. Chantel would have been home in the house at this time. She finished work 10:30 p.m. Whatever happened, shit's getting dark.
Is there a reason in your mind that you would think that she would tell her boyfriend that she's afraid of you? No. Something going on that night and you don't get into any sort of argument?
Nothing. She FaceTimes her boyfriend all the time. You realize that, right? What if I told you her last text to her boyfriend? We're saying don't talk because she still has the FaceTime one. Andy's in here. I'm afraid.
That's what it said.
What if I told you that?
Honestly, that's crazy.
100%.
Honestly, that's crazy.
She lives in the same house you're in.
Yes.
Okay. Besides her boyfriend and mom, and her brothers, you probably have the most access to it, right?
I guess, if that's what you want to say.
Well, I mean, it's true, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I mean, that's...
The blood in her room on her pillow was mixed with saliva, and it was confirmed to be Riley's.
Oh
From the
my
pattern on the
God.
pillow, she appeared to have been bleeding from her mouth and nose, and her face had probably been held against the pillow. You got Andy. She says he was in her room and she was scared. Then he mysteriously disappears during the day. The very next day, he's lying like a rug. And a cadaver dog was brought in to give Andy's truck, the work truck he had borrowed that day, a good old sniff. And it done sniffed the shit out of his truck. There had been a body in there. The dog said no doubt there had been a body in there. So Andy was clearly suspect number one. Every single sign was pointing at Andy McCauley. But where was Riley? They simply aimed the cameras at where he'd been going, following the trail as he drove into more and more remote West Virginia countryside. And following this whole visual trail he left, they found her. They found Riley Crossman 8 days after she disappeared.
Sad news out of northern West Virginia, where police say they believe they have found the remains of a missing 15-year-old girl. Riley Crossman was missing for more than a week until the remains were discovered in a remote area near Martinsburg.
She was severely decomposed and had been tossed over an embankment. It was dental records which told them it was her. A cause of death was undetermined. She had no bra on and her underwear was ripped. Andy McCauley was arrested and charged with the murder of Riley Crossman.
He's gonna get it in prison, though.
What likely happened? And Andy would plead not guilty. So I guess we will kind of like never really know, but what likely happened is that he went into her room that night and he attacked her. I'm guessing he went into her room, they spoke, she got scared, she was texting this to Hayden. Then maybe he came back in then a couple of hours later at like 5 a.m. And this time she awoke, she turned on her FaceTime to try and, so that Hayden could listen into what was happening. After all, Hayden only lived a half a mile away. But Hayden didn't answer. And then, yeah. He'd been in there, the motive, sexual, most likely, and he had suffocated her to death, probably using the pillow to stop her from screaming. Then he hid her body in her bedroom until after Chantel had left that morning, until the house was empty. He went to work in the morning, and he always got a ride to work. Then, at work, he borrowed a truck, drove back to the house, retrieved the body of Riley, and then this big bitch drove out into rural West Virginia. There was also some rumors, and this is totally unconfirmed, that Riley confided in friends that this wasn't the first time he had gone into her room. I mean, he did it pretty brazenly. Chantel would have been around. She would have been in the house this entire time. He didn't seem to give a shit about his girlfriend, somehow hearing about what he was doing to her daughter or something. Fucked up. When Chantel arrived home, she said Andy was sitting on the couch, so he waited till she got home. Then he went in. Maybe it hadn't been the first time he went into Riley's room. A Riley who was just super excited to be getting braces. And Playboy Andy over here, he had a bit of a history with the old crime-arinos. In 2011, he was charged with burglary and destruction of property. In 2013, he was charged with delivering cocaine and conspiracy to deliver cocaine. He enjoyed hitting the slopes, as it were. For that, he was fined $1,000. And then in 2017, he stole a car. And then in 2019, this sack of shit, he stole a life. A sick bastard that he is. Andy McCauley went on trial in the autumn of 2021. He pleaded not guilty.
We submit to you that the evidence will show you that Riley was kept quiet that night. When you suffocate someone, when you smother them, there are what they call non-specific findings. Petechia, red dots hemorrhaging in the eyes. You can have petechia on the heart. You can have petechia on the lungs. You have an enlargement of the right heart. You have an enlargement sometimes of the neck. Sometimes you'll have soft tissue that's disturbed on the inside of the mouth where someone's fighting to get air and they cut themselves. And you have the mixture of blood and saliva. The problem is that he can't look at any of these findings because Riley didn't have any eyes. She didn't have a heart. Her lungs were gone. She was a skeleton. There's a reason Andy McCauley goes back to that house. That's to get Riley's body out of there to dispose it before her mom got home. So ladies and gentlemen, at the conclusion of this case, the state is going to ask you to return guilty verdicts for the offense of murder in the first degree, concealment of Riley Crossman's body, and death of a child by a person in position of trust, by a custodian, by Andy McCauley.
The standard of proof in this case, as a criminal case, is beyond a reasonable doubt. That is the most challenging standard of proof we have in our body of law. We expect that the evidence will not prove a cause of death. There will be no evidence of a weapon. There will be no evidence of when Riley Crossman died, nor where she died. There will be zero motive for Andy McCauley to have killed her, much less malice or premeditation, both of which are required elements of the crime of murder. We believe the evidence will further reveal that there were two adults in the house and 2 children the last time anyone heard from Riley Crossman in a very tiny house. The evidence will reveal there was a 3rd adult in the house earlier that evening. The state will put on a dog sniff witness who's going to say that her dog alerted to human remains in the back of the work truck. Be very careful about language. Words matter. Human remains is not what you think it is. Human remains is any biological product of a human being, including the used Kleenex that's in the back of your car. We share the horror of this tragic death. We do. But there's a second horror possible, and that would be the unjust conviction of an innocent man.
At the end of the trial, the jury found him guilty, and the judge sentenced him to 2 life sentences without the possibility
Death
of
penalty.
parole.
We, the members of the petit jury, as to the issues joined, find the defendant, Andrew J. McCauley Jr., as follows. Count 1, murder. Guilty of murder in the 1st degree. As to count...
And so ends the case of Riley Crossman. Truly, this case, researching into it and telling you the story, it's very disturbing. It's like definitely one of those cases that this guy, person, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, even just talking about Annie McCauley. Like, he was such a disgusting sack of shit, really. Just kind of like, cut to the chase here. Sack of shit. Yeah, kind of, like, he was sentenced to 2 life sentences with no possibility of parole. Still kind of got off lightly. Still stuck in air, this asshole. And Riley, a beautiful young woman who would have gone on to do amazing things, suffering a very tragic fate. Well, Shanae. I guess, like, the lesson to learn here is, just be careful who you let into your life.
Amen.
Though, I mean, come on. These pictures should have been a dead giveaway. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here, watching this old video, very tragic and disturbing one.
Okay, how about we just jump right into the next one? This one is a horrific discovery at the back of the shed. So, yeah, it already says it all.
We just found 2 bags in the shed, and there's 5 of I think they're in the shed in a bag, okay? And I'm just scared to open it.
Okay, we don't want you to touch anything, okay?
So let's just see what we got first. And yeah, I mean, we don't even know what we get. That doesn't look normal.
Get everybody out here.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, we are going to the year of 2018, if you can believe that. Mad stuff, I know. And we're going to talk about Seren Bryan, as one guy, and Danielle Marzejka, that's a gal, who were, teens living just outside of Detroit, Michigan, and they went missing from there. At first people thought, it's kind of strange they're not around, but maybe they're just off chilling. This is during, the long hot dog days of summer. I'm sure they're fine. And it was a long hot summer, real hot, because a couple of days later, people started to notice a smell coming from the shed out back. And that's when the real case began. So, I mean, you know what that means. Like, let's give it a go. It was the 23rd of August 2018 that our story gets off to a start. And it starts in a mobile home in Clinton Township. Clinton Township sits northeast of Detroit proper, about 30 minutes away. As a suburb of the city, about 100,000 people live there, and it's just fine for the most part. So in Clinton, you'll find a pretty extensive mobile home park, and one of those was rented by a Robert Joseph Marzejka. Now, Robert Joseph, who I'll just refer to as Joseph, because his son was also named Robert, he lived in a house with his 3 children. You had Danielle, Marzejka, his son Robert, Marzejka, 24 years old, and then Kevin, 23 years of age. Danielle was the youngest of the kids, but I mean she was 18 years old, so not exactly like a child or anything. Joseph's wife and the mother of his children, Jill, she sadly passed away 7 years before our story begins. She passed away in 2011. Danielle lived in that home with her boyfriend also, Seren Bryan. Danielle and Seren had been dating for years, and he was initially living an hour and a half away with his family. Though he was making the trip like up and down so often, it was just kind of like one of those, shit, may as well live together, move in together. Save on gas, why not? So Danielle and Seren had a room, Robert had a room, Kevin and his girl Erin had a room, and Joseph, the dad, who rented the whole place, he would sleep on the couch, giving the bedrooms to his children, which is like, fair play to you. Joseph, he worked as a painter, like a general contractor, and his 2 sons, Kevin and Robert, they would often work with him, especially, when they needed some money, and they had white work vans that they would drive around in, using for work and for pleasure. So that's what the men in the Marzejka family did. What Danielle herself did was work the night shift at National Coney Island, a chain of restaurants in the greater Detroit area. And Seren, her boyfriend, he done work there too. They'd been working there for a few weeks, by the time our story begins. Summer jobs for both Danielle and Seren. Now, neither of them had a car. Danielle and Seren didn't have a car, so when they were going to work, they would often grab a ride with a friend of theirs who also worked at this place. On the 22nd of August, 2018, Danielle, Seren, and this friend of theirs, they all drove to work beginning the 9 p.m. shift. They would always do night shifts. They were there, so, working through the night. Another day on the rig before this friend dropped Danielle and Seren off at their home at 8 a.m. the following morning, and as they were walking in, after a long night, going to go to bed, Joseph was walking out, about to start his day. Joseph said goodbye to his daughter and her boyfriend, and off he went. And that was the last time Seren or Danielle were seen alive. That evening, now the 23rd of August, both Danielle and Seren, they were scheduled in for another night shift at Coney's. Now, this particular day, the friend who would always bring them to work, she said she would message Danielle saying she couldn't, her car fucked. She couldn't give them a lift that day. And she sent this message to Danielle at 1 p.m. saying, alright, we're going to sort something else out to get to work later on. Then, 4 hours later, at 5 p.m., she messaged Danielle again saying, alright, my car is done for, but hey, sorted it out, I got another ride for us. Then at 7 p.m. she texted Danielle for a 3rd time saying, uh-oh, the ride fell through. Sorry, we need to sort something out because you have to be in 2 hours to start at 9. And none of these messages reached Danielle. And this struck the friend as really, really weird because Danielle always replied to messages. I mean, especially if it's messages, about work where she kind of needed to be somewhere that evening. It was just very, very odd. She didn't even get the message scene, little message thing you get on Facebook. Danielle was always on the phone. She was always on social media, always texting, always on whatever, to the point where Danielle carried a charger around with her, in her handbag. That's how I don't know anybody who carries a charger around with them unless it's a work thing. But Danielle was always it's weird then when she doesn't get back to you. It was her lifeline to the world outside of Clinton Township, but it seemed that had gone dead. So the friend was thinking, alright, a million different things could run through your mind. It could be a million different answers to the question of what's going on. So she said, alright, listen, I'm sure I'll see Danielle and Seren at work later on that day. No sweat. She didn't. They missed the shift, and that worried the friend then even more. They were responsible people. Now, something's up. Something's wrong. The next day, the next morning, after finishing her shift, the friend went to the house. Went to Danielle and Seren's house. Joseph and Robert were there. Let the friend in. She had a look around. She had a look around her bedroom. It was a bit all over the place. She saw Danielle's charger was right there, so it's not like they had run off or anything like that. She called around to a couple of her friends. Nobody had seen them. Nobody had seen them. Again, maybe it was they just decided to spontaneously go off somewhere on a summer's day, but they wouldn't do that, so. And again, there would be a no-show at work. The next day, then, a couple more friends would pop over. You know, more people becoming worried about Danielle and Seren, and they would go over into their room, have a look around. Any clues as to where they could have gone? They would find Seren's wallet. They would find Danielle's glucose meter. She had the diabetes. You know, they found a couple of things that's like, this is not you. This is weird as that. It's weird. It was then on the 26th of August that Danielle's brother Kevin and his girlfriend Erin, they were becoming really, really worried. Like, so that was kind of weird because the family kind of became worried last. But then they were like, okay, this is getting really, really weird as shit. I mean, at the start, you know, they're thinking, she's fine. She's grand, you know. You guys are worrying about nothing. Well, now they're worrying about something. Kevin went into Danielle's room, looking around the place, seeing what he could see. Again, any clues as to a note, maybe that somebody missed, whatever. He's walking around, and he started looking out the window, outside their window into the yard, the family's yard, to see if there was maybe somebody climbed through a window or something like that. And he saw that the grass outside was really trampled, really disturbed, as if there had been, you know, activity there. So Kevin went out to investigate. Any clues out here, maybe? He didn't really see a whole lot during that hot summer day, but he did notice a lot of flies. Like, a lot of flies. You know that, like, gut feeling you get when you just know something is wrong? It's like you can't consciously see or hear anything, but your subconscious is picking up that this is not okay. Something is very, very wrong here. It's like you heard something without hearing it, you saw something without noticing it, but your brain is picking up that we have a problem. That's definitely what Kevin was having at this stage. And he saw the flies were growing the closer you got to the shed. Kevin got the key out for the shed, and he unlocked it, opened the door, and the flies just began to spread. Inside was a lawnmower and a couple of other things which they pulled out of the way so they could get a clear look into what was going on around here. And at the back of the shed they saw two large black plastic bags. Joseph had arrived at this stage to see what was going on. They got out a box cutter, sliced it. They saw a leg. The police were then called.
One, where's your
Hello?
emergency?
Hello?
Hello, 911.
Hi, I need someone to come to my house immediately.
Okay, what's going on over there?
Well, my sister's been missing for 4 or 5 days. Her and her boyfriend. And we just found 2 bags in the shed, and there's flies all. I think they're in the shed in a bag, okay? And I'm just scared to open it.
Okay, we don't want you to touch anything, okay? Because if it is something like that, there's going to be evidence, okay?
We stopped.
Okay,
We stopped.
you said there's how many bags in that shed?
There's like 5 bags, but these 2 are the ones with flies all over them, okay? Can you just get someone here to check?
Yep, we're getting everyone on the way. What's your name?
Kevin Marzejka. Over here, please.
Hi.
Hey.
So what's going on here?
So, my sister, his daughter, has been missing for 5 days now.
Okay.
I did a walk around the house, check if there's any trails or anything suspicious. I've seen a boatload of flies behind the shed. And when I pulled things out, we have these bags
Smells like dust in there.
filled with flies, and they don't look good.
I can't even.
So let's just see what we got first. And yeah, I mean, we don't even know what we hit. That doesn't look normal.
Oh yeah, it's dude. We don't have to talk. We're confirmed. We're confirmed. Confirmed.
It's confirmed. Yes, it is. It is. Get everybody out here.
In one bag, Danielle. In the other, Seren. Danielle was known as a beautiful soul who would put others before herself. She would give her last dollar to a homeless person who needed it more than she did. Just a great person. Seren, a joker. A lot of fun and someone who was always sure to make his friends laugh and put people at ease. This was a horrific tragedy. The police cordoned off the area, right, and friends and family arrived. Shock was the only reaction, swiftly followed by heartbreak. How could this have happened though? You know, close friends, like, was it done to themselves? Was it a murder-suicide or something like that?
How old is she?
18. Her and her boyfriend Seren is 19 are both missing. They both work with me. I dropped them off after work on Thursday morning. They've been missing since Thursday at 8 a.m. That's when I dropped them off. That's the last time they were seen.
Where'd you drop them off?
Here, their house, after work.
That was the last time you saw them?
That's the last time anyone saw them.
Nothing strange had been seen, by the neighbors, but some people did bring up that they'd seen some kind of darker social media posts about that sort of thing. I mean, and that's how Jill, the mother, Joseph's wife, Danielle's mother, that's how she died back in 2011. She had overdosed on drugs and sadly passed away that way. So then they're thinking, what kind of effect did that have on Danielle? And did they do something like that? They had posted some dark things, dark humor things on social media, and a lot of people, use dark humor as a crutch. This guy definitely does. But combining that with finding them like this.
Clinton Township police say they found 2 bodies inside garbage bags in a shed behind this mobile home. The same mobile home the woman who was reported missing lives in with her family. 18-year-old Danielle Marzejka was reported missing by her father, according to police. This is a photo her friends have shared with me and multiple times in social media in their search for her. Police say the family had only recently moved into this mobile home near 16 Mile and Groesbeck. Sunday night around 8:30 p.m., police say they were called to investigate a horrific discovery made in the shed. Police believe one of those 2 bodies found is a woman, but they do not yet have the identities confirmed or the cause of death.
That's what those around them were thinking. The police very soon had other inclinations as to what happened. Both were in a steady state of decomposition. Seren had been wrapped in 5 plastic bags. 3 were around his head and neck, 1 around his upper body, and 1 around his lower body. His mouth was covered in duct tape. The duct tape has probably actually been over his nose too, but it slipped down. His wrists and ankles had been bound too. Danielle, she'd been wrapped in 3 bags, 1 just around her entire body, then 2 around her head and her neck. She too duct taped up, and both victims, Danielle and Seren, had severe head fractures. Somebody had gone to town. So both tied up, beaten, severely, and then dumped in this horrific way in the shed. It would also be determined that even though they suffered those horrific head injuries, it was unlikely that they were the cause of death. More likely, it would have been asphyxiation. After they had been bagged up, duct tape all around their mouth and their nose, they suffocated inside those bags. They were only wearing underwear, and neither had signs of self-defense, so it perhaps had occurred while they were sleeping. Inside the shed, along with the bodies, they found a plastic bag with some bloody items, including a rubber hammer that was likely the attacking weapon, pillows, more duct tape, and a sheet that would have come from their bed. And bringing luminol into the bedroom, it lit up. People had been coming and going for days, and it was under their nose the entire time. An entire bloodbath right there. And more bloody items were found stuffed inside the closet. The investigation swiftly turned on those around the 2 victims, and more specifically, the one person who was not there when they were found, Robert Marzejka. A search of the house that day did not reveal him. He had been in the house since they went missing, but he himself would disappear right before they were found. He had left the house and gone to a motel that was 6 minutes away. As you can imagine, the police desperately wanted to speak with him. 7 years before all of this, Robert had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and paranoia, and had been hospitalized a number of times over the years. Now this is right after his mother, Jill, she passed away. That's when he began hearing voices and so on and so forth. He also refused to believe the doctor's diagnosis. He was not having any of that. He's like, no. So he was not taking his medication at all, which, not great. Not great. He had been working in Detroit, but had recently moved back to Clinton Township, working for the general contractor with his dad. He did have a bit of a drinking problem, but others would say they had no clue of his diagnosis, that he was generally just really well-adjusted. He seemed like a really well-adjusted, normal guy, really nice guy, never had any issues with him or anything like that at all. However, others in the family, they found him to be getting the opposite. Him to be getting worse, more aggressive lately, and so on and so forth. Police would announce that he was a person of interest, and to keep an eye out for his vehicle.
26-year-old Robert Marzejka is a person of interest in this case. He was driving a white 1999 Ford E250 van with license plate DGM7658 and blue duct tape around the driver's side rear window.
I know he was a little lost.
Now police are looking for her brother, Robert Marzejka.
That day, Robert had been staying at an inn not too far from the family home. And like, this was, he checked in before the bodies were discovered. Nobody knew this. His family didn't have a clue where he was. He then left the inn, leaving behind his cell phone, his laptop, a few other bits and bobs. He drove in, one of those white work vans to Toledo, just on the border, and it was found from there he got in one of them good old Greyhound buses all the way to Cincinnati, Ohio. He arrived in Toledo at around 3:45 a.m., but what Robert didn't know was that the police were hunting for him by this stage and had already been to the bus stations handing out photos of him. But Robert, he had a plan. He was a master of disguise. He was wearing a blonde wig, a hat, and sunglasses. Well, I'll be damned. So the Greyhound employees immediately told the police where he was. At this point, he was in Cincinnati at the Greyhound station and was wandering around for some time before asking an employee if he could use a computer. He had left his behind. They directed him to a nearby library, and when the police got to Cincinnati, they went that way. He was then arrested at the library by U.S. Marshals.
What happened was unimaginable, and it happened to your sister, which is awful. Okay? But what I have is reasons why things happen. Whether those reasons are understandable or not, I'm just here to hear you out, right? So, what did you have to say to us? Something happened and they lost, or what happened? My first question: what is charge? Showing me that. Well, you got 2 counts. This is actual the charge document. 2 counts of homicide, murder, and first degree. What is that? Premeditated. What is premeditated? It means you plan to do it. And if that's not the case, you tell me you're looking at the worst charge possible. Okay. Killing 2 people, alright? But nobody can understand why this happened.
The day of the murders, Danielle and Seren, they arrived home, at 8 a.m. We can presume that, having just worked an entire night shift, they just went straight to bed. They would have been alone, in the house all that time. Robert was the only other person in the house that day. Now, for when he did what he did, we don't know. But at some point, while they were sleeping, he went into their room. Then at 1:20 a.m. he ordered a cab. He went from his house to sir, this is a Wendy's. He went to a Wendy's, still covered in blood. Then shortly before they were found, he went on the run for, like a bit in his amazing disguise. It's pretty good, to be honest. Robert agreed to return to Clinton Township to face the 2 charges of murder. Robert's DNA was found on all items. He pleaded not guilty and wasn't very conversational during his court appearances. Robert, he was evaluated by court psychiatrists and he was found to be competent to stand trial, though, his defense was, not guilty by reason of insanity. That's what they were going with, the insanity defense.
So, this is what I always have a trouble with. He did state earlier that, before the whole plea and everything, that he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, paranoid schizophrenia, and something else. But just the simple fact that I'm not a lawyer. I know what constitutes premeditated murder, but there is a very good interrogation video that I was going to upload, and I'll upload that probably tomorrow so you could kind of see. This is where I kind of have the problem with. I know putting these guys in mental hospitals for the rest of their lives kind of seems like easy. But remember, they still have no fucking freedom. They're not going to get out anytime soon. They're going to walk around medicated the fuck out of their mind. And they're not going to be throwing piss, shit, you know, God only knows what else at these poor correction officers who are working freaking 12-hour days, you know, for 12 days straight, and, you know, just so tired out of their mind where, you know, they might end up getting killed from these guys who are clearly psychotic. And this is just watching out for the welfare of these correction officers. It's somebody like this guy obviously is not all there mentally. So what is it that we're so quick to want to put these guys in, you know, federal institutions, you know, for first-degree murder? The dude is obviously fucked up in the head. He lost his shit when his mother died. I mean, I don't know the relationship between him and his sister before that. Who's to say it was even... I mean, there's a lot of evidence, of course, that, you know, probably Mike doesn't have, and it probably wasn't released, or if it was released, we're not, you know, I'm not fully aware of, to show if there was premeditated, you know, if there was premeditation. But if he was already diagnosed with all that before this even happened, I mean, should he be competent to stand trial? My opinion would be no. Because that's just going to put him and others in danger. And most of all, the correction officers in danger. Because a lot of those sick assholes do a lot of messed up stuff to those, you know, correction officers, to where, I mean, could you imagine being a correction officer and somebody throws shit and piss at you and it gets in your eyes or your mouth or something? Then all of a sudden you got to wonder, like, what the fuck is this dude carrying? Does he have, you know, hepatitis? Does he have HIV? Does he have, you know, this, and having to be off work and wait for the test results? And I mean, just the shit you have to go through. I mean, I don't know if it's always the right call to do that. That's just my opinion.
You know, the many years of untreated mental illness, it's likely he was not in his right frame of mind to do what he did. I mean, no shit. Who does that? Who goes into the bedroom where their sleeping sister and her boyfriend are with, like... Who does that? You have to not be in your right frame of mind. But he also never showed any remorse for doing what he did. What he did being going into the bedroom while they were sleeping and bashing their heads in, then tying them up, duct taping their mouths shut where they would asphyxiate, and then leaving them in the shed out back, and then cleaning the scene. But the issue with this is, after Robert did what he did, there was a lot of room, there was a lot of time for him to, you know, be back in his right frame of mind. You know, before, like, going on the run with his, like, shitty little disguise, looking like an asshole. So instead of realizing, holy shit, I can't believe what I just did, he was like, I do not want to be here when they get found. And see, the defense, they hired their own doctors to evaluate Robert, and though the defense's doctors found, yes, he does have, you know, severe mental illness, he was in control of himself at the time of what was happening. Like, he knew what he was doing then. So the insanity defense kind of like, whoops, kind of went away pretty soon after that. They were now hoping for a second-degree murder conviction. Did they get one? The motive has never been determined. The only one that comes to mind is a loss of the control, but that wasn't found to be the case. He knew what he was doing, according to the doctors, and he did it anyway. Something as horrific as this. The jury came back after less than an hour, guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I don't agree with that.
And I don't want to relitigate the case, but as the court will look at the file, Mr. Marzejka has had mental illness for a long time. He's heard voices, he's been hospitalized. He's actually been petitioned by his brother, who's present in the court, and by his father. What happened to Seren that day and Danielle is absolutely horrific. It should not have happened. Shouldn't happen to anybody. And certainly should not have been disposed of or discovered in the manner that they were. I just want the court to keep track of the fact that this was, Your Honor, not to make any excuses or to make a mockery of the judicial system, but it was in fact a product of mental illness, and that's well substantiated. The jury just did not see it that way. Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you wish to say anything?
No.
You don't wish to say anything? You murdered your sister, Danielle, and her boyfriend.
See,
Seren.
the
You
judge
don't
is
wish
already
to say anything?
prejudiced.
No.
All right. Well, I just want to point out in the PSI, it says, the defendant reported that he is in good physical and mental health. So, you don't have much to say, sir, so I don't have much to say except that you're an evil man and you're going where you belong. So the sentence of the court is you place in the Michigan Department of Corrections for a period of life without parole with 503 days served.
And so ends the story of Robert, his little sister Danielle, and her boyfriend Seren. An appeal by Robert was later denied. I don't think we'll ever know why Robert did what he did and why he never showed any remorse for doing what he had done. It's an incredibly horrific, disturbing, tragic. There's a lot of synonyms you could insert here. But all of them kind of cover it. Sad story for Danielle and Seren Bryan, truly is, but it seems like Robert Marzejka is Marzejkaing his way into where he should be. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to leave it there, muchachos. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here with me, talking and all this kind of stuff. So thank you. As always, I'll see you real soon, either in a couple of days or whenever.
I love ya.
But it'll be real soon, promise. But until then, please take care of each other and yourselves because I love you. Mike out.
Man, I'm glad I spent some time doing a couple of videos of Mike. He's the man. He's the man. So, hope you guys enjoyed that tonight. Gonna upload this. A lot of you guys might be up. Some of you guys might be asleep, but let's get this going, guys. Till then, I'm out.